For 7 years, my family treated me like a broken appliance they kept around just to pat themselves on the back for not throwing away. They called me the charity case, until it nearly replaced my name. They mistook my silence for gratitude, never suspecting that the only person truly watching was Grandma. While they were busy performing sainthood, she was quietly writing a will that would cost them everything they thought they owned. The paper bag was heavy, crinkled at the edges, and had my name written on it in thick, permanent marker. It sat in the center of the mahogany dining table like a centerpiece, flanked by platters of roast beef and glazed carrots. "Go on, open it, Sadie," Uncle Dale said, his face flushed with the kind of red that came from 2 hours of open bar access. "It is tradition now. You know we cannot start dessert until the charity case gets her care package." The room went quiet, but it was not a respectful silence. It was the breathless, anticipatory silence of a theater audience waiting for the punchline. My cousin Jessica, who was sitting across from me, had her phone out, resting casually against her water glass. The camera lens pointed directly at my face. I forced the corners of my mouth up. It felt like stretching old rubber. "I am 33 years old," I said, keeping my voice light. "I think I can buy my own groceries now." "Dale." "Oh, come on," Aunt Linda chirped from the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Do not be a spoil sport. Honey, it is just a little family fun. We all know how hard it is for you out there." The narrative never shifted. It did not matter that my credit score had climbed back into the 700s. It did not matter that I had been promoted to senior logistics coordinator 3 months ago. To them, I was frozen in time, trapped in the amber of my worst year. I reached out and took the bag. The paper felt rough under my fingertips. I opened it, knowing exactly what to expect, but hoping, stupidly, that maybe this time it would be different. It was not. Inside lay a box of generic macaroni and cheese, a roll of single-ply toilet paper, and a handful of clipped coupons for discount detergent that had expired 2 months ago. Laughter rippled around the table. It was not malicious laughter. They would argue. It was affectionate. It was just a joke. "Charity starter kit," Dale roared, slapping the table. "In case the husband does not come back." That was the dagger. The husband. The divorce was 7 years old. Ancient history in my timeline. But fresh fodder for theirs. I pulled out the macaroni box and held it up, performing the role they had written for me. "Thanks," I said. "I was running low." "Good girl," Linda said, finally setting down the pie. "We have to look out for our own. Who else is going to?" I sat through dessert. I ate 3 bites of cherry pie that tasted like sawdust. I nodded when Jessica talked about her new Lexus. I smiled when Uncle Dale made a joke about inflation hitting me harder than the rest of them. I endured it because that is what I had been trained to do. But when the coffee was poured, I stood up. "I have an early morning." I lied. "Leaving so soon?" Jessica asked, her eyes wide with mock concern. "Do not forget your bag." I grabbed the handle of the paper bag. I walked to the door, my heels clicking on the hardwood, a sound that used to make me feel professional, but here just sounded like I was running away. I said my goodbyes. I hugged the people who required hugging, and then I walked out into the cool October air, got into my 7-year-old sedan, and drove 2 blocks down the street before pulling into the parking lot of a closed pharmacy. I turned off the engine. The silence of the car rushed in to meet me. I looked at the bag sitting on the passenger seat, the charity starter kit. The scream started in my stomach and worked its way up, but it never left my throat. Instead, it dissolved into hot, angry tears. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Gasping for air, furious at the family for being cruel, but mostly furious at myself for still caring enough to let it hurt. 7 years ago. I did not need a charity starter kit. I had a life. I had a husband named Mark, a job in marketing that paid $60,000 a year, and a mortgage on a starter home with a blue front door. I had a plan. We were going to have a baby in 2 years. We were going to refinish the basement. We were going to go to Italy for our 5th anniversary. Then, Within the span of 60 days, the floor dropped out of the world. Mark left first. There was no big fight, no dramatic affair I could point to and hate him for. He just sat me down on the couch one Tuesday evening and told me he was unhappy and had been unhappy for a long time. He wanted to find himself, and he could not do it with me. He left me with the house, which sounded generous, until I realized he also left me with the mortgage I could not afford alone. 2 weeks later, the marketing firm merged with a larger agency. I was called into an office with glass walls and told that my position was being made redundant. They gave me a cardboard box and 2 weeks of severance pay. I lost the husband. I lost the job. And inevitably, I lost the house. I moved into a basement rental in a part of town where the streetlights hummed and flickered. It was damp, dark, and smelled perpetually of someone else's cooking. I was 26, divorced, unemployed, and watching my savings drain away like water in a cracked cup. That was when the family swooped in. At first, I thought it was love when Aunt Linda showed up with casseroles. I cried with gratitude when Uncle Dale offered to pay for a tank of gas. I thanked him 3 times. I was drowning, and they were throwing me life rafts, but I quickly learned that the rafts were tethered to chains. The help was never just help. It was a transaction. When Aunt Linda brought lasagna, she also brought a critique of my apartment's cleanliness. "It smells like mold in here." "Sadie," she said, wrinkling her nose as she set the dish on my wobbly table, "I suppose you cannot afford better, but really, you could at least scrub the baseboards." When Uncle Dale fixed the leak under my sink, he used the 20 minutes to lecture me on my career choices. Marketing was always a fluff degree. He grunted from beneath the pipes. "You should have gone into nursing. Nurses do not get laid off. This is what happens when you try to be fancy." I took the criticism because I needed the sink fixed. I took the judgment because I needed the food. I stripped my pride down to the studs just to survive. But then the retelling began. At a Christmas party 6 months after the collapse, I overheard my cousin Jessica talking to her new boyfriend. "That is Sadie," she whispered, pointing her wine glass at me. "She is a total disaster right now. Divorced, fired, living in a dungeon. Mom basically has to feed her. It is so sad. We are all just worried she's going to have a breakdown." I stood frozen near the shrimp cocktail, feeling the heat rise up my neck. I was working 2 part-time jobs at that point, one as a receptionist, one stocking shelves at a bookstore. I was tired. Yes, I was broke. Yes, but I was not a charity case. I was surviving. However, the label stuck. It was easier for them to categorize me as the family tragedy than to acknowledge I was a human being having a hard year. It made them feel superior. It made their own messy marriages and credit card debts look manageable by comparison. "Look at Sadie," they could say. "At least we are not Sadie." I became the yardstick by which they measured their success, and the only person who did not participate in the cannibalization of my dignity was Grandma. Grandma did not bring me casseroles with a side of judgment. She did not fix things I had not asked her to fix. One rainy Tuesday, when I was at my lowest, staring at a bank balance that read $42, my phone rang. "Sadie," Grandma said. Her voice was like dry leaves, rasping but solid. "I made a pot roast. It is too big for one old woman. Come eat." I went. I sat at her small kitchen table with the yellow floral tablecloth. She put a plate of roast beef, potatoes, and gravy in front of me. She poured me a glass of water. She sat opposite me with her cup of tea, and she just let me eat. She did not ask about job applications. She did not ask if I had heard from Mark. She did not look at my frayed sweater with pity. "How is the meat?" she asked. "It is perfect, Grandma," I said, and then I started crying. I cried into the mashed potatoes. I cried until I could not breathe. She did not hush me. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Her skin was paper thin, spotted with age, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "Let it out," she said. "You are carrying too much water. Sadie, you have to empty the bucket sometime." When I was finished, I wiped my face with a napkin, feeling hollowed out and ashamed. I am sorry. I whispered. Everyone else thinks I'm pathetic. I guess I am proving them right. Grandma took a sip of her tea. She set the cup down with a sharp click. Who is everyone else? She asked. Linda? Dale? Jessica? Yes, I said. All of them. They treat me like I am a child, like I am a project. Grandma looked out the window at the rain hitting the bird feeder. People like to fix things that are broken because it makes them feel whole. She said, It has nothing to do with you. Sadie, it is about their own cracks. She turned her gaze back to me. It was sharp, intelligent, and entirely devoid of pity. You do not owe people access to your life just because they share your last name. She said, Remember that. Blood is biology. Loyalty is a choice. That sentence anchored me. I went home that night and looked at my apartment. It was small. It was damp. But it was mine. I started rebuilding. It was not a movie montage. It was slow, grinding, unglamorous work. I got a job as an administrative assistant at a logistics warehouse. It was not marketing. It involved spreadsheets, invoices, and tracking shipments of industrial piping. It paid $38,000 a year. I budgeted down to the penny. I cut my own hair. I stopped going to family dinners unless it was a major holiday. I found a therapist who saw me on a sliding scale. A woman named Dr. Evans who taught me the word boundaries. No is a complete sentence. Doctor. Evans told me. I tried it out on Aunt Linda. Sadie, I have some old clothes of Jessica's I'm bringing over. Linda texted me one Saturday. You can wear them to work. No, thank you. I texted back. I am good. The response was immediate. Well, excuse me for trying to help. I guess you are too good for charity now. I stared at the phone. My heart hammered, but I did not apologize. I did not explain. I put the phone down and went back to my spreadsheet. Month by month, I climbed. I paid off the credit card debt Mark had left me with. I moved out of the basement and into a second-floor apartment with sunlight. I got a raise. I started wearing clothes that fit. But the family did not like the new version of me. The new version of me was not useful to their narrative. If I declined a Sunday dinner, I was ungrateful. If I bought a new coat, I was irresponsible with money. If I did not share every detail of my life, I was secretive. They needed me to be the disaster. When I refused to play the part, they just kept reading the old script over me, louder and louder. Then, 6 months ago, the ground shifted again. Grandma started to fade. It was subtle at first. She forgot where she put her keys. She repeated a story about her childhood twice in 10 minutes. Then came the falls, a stumble in the garden, a slip in the hallway. Suddenly, the house on Elm Street, which had been a quiet sanctuary for decades, became Grand Central Station. The family descended. Uncle Dale, who hadn't visited Grandma in 6 months, was suddenly there every weekend, mowing the lawn and making sure the neighbors saw him doing it. Aunt Linda, who used to complain that Grandma was difficult, began bringing Tupperware containers of soup and posting photos of them on Facebook with captions like, "Caring for our matriarch." Family is everything. Jessica started bringing her kids over, staging elaborate photo shoots on Grandma's porch to show what a devoted granddaughter she was. I watched it all with a sick feeling in my stomach. They were not there for her. They were there for the credit. They were there to stake their claims. I tried to keep my visits quiet. I went on Tuesday evenings, like always. I did the laundry. I sorted her medication. I sat with her and watched game shows. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen making tea while Grandma napped in her recliner. Cousin Mike walked in. Mike was 40, a real estate agent who always smelled of expensive cologne and desperation. "Hey, Sadie," he said, opening the fridge and peering inside. "Looks like you are making yourself at home. I'm just making tea." Mike, "Right," he said, grabbing a soda. "Good to see you pitching in. I mean, considering what?" I asked, turning to face him. "Considering everything Grandma has done for you," he said, popping the tab. "You owe her big time. It is good you are working off the debt." My hand tightened on the kettle. I am not working off a debt. Mike, she is my grandmother. I love her. Sure, he said, taking a swig. But let us be real. You are the one who needed the handouts. It makes sense you would be the one changing the bedsheets now. Just do not get too comfortable. What does that mean? It means. He lowered his voice, leaning in. Do not think that just because you are here all the time, you are getting anything extra. We know how this works. You are grateful. We get it. But do not be opportunistic. The audacity took my breath away. Here was a man who had borrowed $5,000 from Grandma 2 years ago to flip a house that never got flipped. A loan I knew he hadn't paid back because Grandma had mentioned it once in passing. And he was calling me opportunistic. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the hot tea in his face. I wanted to list every dollar I had earned, every hour I had spent rebuilding my life without their help. But I looked at the living room where Grandma was sleeping. If I yelled, she would wake up. If I fought, there would be tension. And Grandma needed peace more than I needed vindication. I understand you. Mike, I said, my voice dead flat. Good, he said, crushing the can, just looking out for the family legacy. He walked out, leaving me shaking in the kitchen. 2 weeks later, Grandma asked me to stay after dinner. The house was quiet. The vultures had gone home to post their selfless acts on Instagram. Sadie, Grandma said. She was sitting at the dining table, a pair of reading glasses perched on her nose. I need your help with something. Anything. Grandma? She pushed a heavy cardboard box toward me. I cannot get down to the file cabinet anymore, she said, and my eyes are not what they used to be. I need to get my papers in order. I need you to organize this. I opened the box. It was a chaotic jumble of receipts, bank statements, and legal-looking envelopes. Just sort them? I asked. Sort them. She said, by date, by person. I started that night. It was tedious work, the kind of admin I did all day at the warehouse, but I found a rhythm in it. As I sorted, a picture began to form, a picture constructed of numbers and signatures. Grandma was not just a sweet old lady who baked pies. Grandma was a meticulous record keeper. I found a green binder at the bottom of the box. It was heavy, with reinforced edges. I opened it. Inside, there were tabs. The first tab was labeled Property. It contained the deed to the house, the maintenance records, and the insurance policies. The second tab was labeled Medical. The third tab was labeled Loans Gifts. I hesitated. This felt private. Grandma? I asked. She was watching me from her chair. Keep going, she said softly. I turned to the Loans Gifts section. My breath hitched. It was a ledger. Handwritten in Grandma's neat, cursive script. June 12, 2018. Dale Butler. Loan for car repair. Amount, $2,000. Terms, to be repaid by December 2018. Underneath, in red ink. Status, unpaid, no mention made. August 4th, 2019. Jessica Miller. Gift for wedding dress. Amount, $1,500. Note, Jessica claimed dress cost $3,000. Receipt found in trash. $800. March 20th, 2021. Michael Butler. Investment loan. Amount, $5,000. Status, unpaid. Mike claims market crash. Bought new boat in July. I flipped the pages, my heart pounding against my ribs. It was all there. Every emergency my family had claimed, every sob story, every request for money. Grandma had tracked it all. She knew who had paid her back and who hadn't. She knew who had lied. Then I saw my name. February 14th, 2019. Sadie Butler. Grocery assistance. Amount, $200. Status, repaid March 1st, 2019. Cash in envelope with thank you card. May 2019. Sadie Butler. Rent assistance. Amount, $600. Status, repaid, June 2019. Included interest, refused interest. Sadie insisted. I stared at the page. The tears pricked my eyes again. She had recorded it. She knew I had paid her back, while the family was out there telling the world I was a leech. Grandma had the receipts proving I was the only one who had squared my debts. "Why do you have this?" I asked, looking up at her. "Because," Grandma said, her voice steady. "Memories are convenient. Ink is permanent." She pointed to the back of the binder. "There is one more tab," she said. I turned to the very back, a red tab. The label read, "Sadie, do not open until I say." My hand hovered over it. "What is in here?" I whispered. "Not yet," she said, clasping her hands in her lap. "You will know when it is time. Close the book now. Sadie, put it on the high shelf in the closet, behind the towels." I did as she asked. I felt a chill run down my spine as I hid the binder. It felt like I was hiding a weapon. The end of part 1 came 3 days ago. I had stopped by Grandma's house to drop off her prescription. I let myself in with my key. The house was quiet, but I heard voices in the kitchen. I recognized the hushed, urgent tones of Uncle Dale and Aunt Linda. I stopped in the hallway, just out of sight. "She is getting worse," Linda was saying. "The doctor said the confusion comes and goes. We need to move on this." Dale said, "I talked to that lawyer buddy of mine. If we can get her to sign the power of attorney now, while she is having a good day, we can lock it down." I held my breath. "What about Sadie?" Linda asked. "She is always lurking around." "Sadie is a non-issue," Dale scoffed. "She is a charity case. Nobody is going to listen to her. If she tries to make trouble, we just remind everyone about her little breakdown 7 years ago. Who is a judge going to believe? The successful brother or the girl who could not even keep a husband?" Linda laughed, a low, cruel sound. "True, we just need to get Grandma to sign the transfer on the house. We can tell her it is for tax purposes. She trusts us." I stood there in the hallway, gripping the pharmacy bag until the paper crinkled. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they would hear it. This was not just about them being mean anymore. This was not just about the insults or the joke gifts. They were planning to trick her. They were planning to steal the house that was Grandma's life, her security, her legacy, and they were going to use my past as the shield to do it. They thought I was weak. They thought I was the broken girl from 7 years ago who cried over macaroni and cheese. I backed away silently. I eased the front door open and closed it again, making a loud click this time. "Hello?" I called out, my voice bright and false. "Anyone here? Grandma?" I heard the scramble in the kitchen, the chairs scraping, the frantic adjustment of tone. "In here! Sadie!" Linda called out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Just making some coffee." I walked into the kitchen. Dale was leaning against the counter, smiling that salesman's smile. Linda was reaching for a mug. They looked at me, and I saw the predator in their eyes. They saw the prey. I set the pharmacy bag on the counter. "Just dropping off the meds," I said. "Thanks, kiddo," Dale said, reaching out to pat my shoulder. I flinched, just barely, but he didn't notice. "You are a good helper." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had mocked me for 7 years while owing his mother $2,000. I looked at the woman who had shamed my housekeeping while plotting to steal a house. I thought about the green binder hidden behind the towels upstairs. I thought about the red tab. I smiled. It was a small, tight smile. "Just doing what I can," I said. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving them to their coffee and their schemes. They thought they were in control. They thought they were writing the end of the story. But they didn't know about the binder. And they didn't know that the charity case had just stopped crying and started taking notes. The week after I overheard Uncle Dale and Aunt Linda plotting in the kitchen, my life divided into 2 distinct timelines. There was the timeline of my day job at the logistics warehouse, where I tracked shipping containers and argued with truck drivers about delivery windows. Then there was the timeline that began the moment I clocked out at 5 o'clock, drove 20 minutes across town, and walked into the quiet, cedar-scented hallway of Grandma's house on Elm Street. I became a sentinel. I stopped asking for permission to visit. I simply appeared. I told the family I was picking up extra shifts helping Grandma with her physical therapy exercises, a lie that worked because it involved labor they did not want to do themselves. If I was there stretching Grandma's legs and helping her to the bathroom, that meant they did not have to. They saw it as the charity case trying to earn her keep. I saw it as standing guard. But as the days turned into weeks, I noticed something that the rest of them seemed to miss entirely. The family treated Grandma like she was fading, like a radio signal losing its frequency. They spoke to her in loud, simplified sentences. "How are we feeling today? Mom, did we eat our soup?" They talked over her head, discussing the weather or the news as if she were a piece of furniture. However, I saw the truth. Grandma was not fading. She was sharpening. It was in the way she watched them. When Cousin Mike came over to check the furnace, Grandma did not just nod gratefully. She waited until he left the room and then looked at me. "Check the basement." "Sadie," she said, her voice low and clear. See if he actually looked at the filter, or if he just went down there to smoke a cigarette. I went downstairs. The air smelled of stale tobacco, and the furnace panel had not been touched. He smoked. I reported back. She nodded. A small, grim smile touching her lips. "Put it in the book." She meant the binder, the green binder behind the towels. I had not opened it since that first night, but I knew she was adding to it. She was compiling a dossier on her own kin. One Tuesday evening, I was rinsing dishes in the sink while Grandma sat at the kitchen table, peeling an orange. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were locked on the driveway. "Who visited while I was at work?" I asked. "Linda came by at 10 o'clock. Grandma said, she brought a gelatin mold. Lime. She knows I hate lime. Did she bring anything else?" "She brought a folder," Grandma said. "She told me it was just some updates for the insurance policy. She wanted me to sign a page. She said it was urgent." My stomach dropped. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands. Turning to face her, "Did you sign it?" Grandma pulled a segment of orange apart slowly. I told her I did not have my reading glasses. She said, "I told her I could not possibly sign anything I could not read." She got very frustrated. She tried to read it to me, but I told her my hearing was acting up. She popped the orange slice into her mouth and chewed thoughtfully. She left the folder on the counter. Grandma continued. She said she would come back tomorrow when I was feeling more cooperative. I looked at the counter. The folder was gone. I had moved it to the top of the refrigerator earlier, thinking it was junk mail. "Grandma," I said, walking over to the table, "you know what they are trying to do, don't you?" She looked up at me. The blue of her eyes was milky with age, but the gaze behind it was iron. "They think I am a senile old woman who is sitting on a pile of gold," she said. "They think the money belongs to them, and I am just the gatekeeper who is taking too long to die." Her bluntness took the wind out of me. "They do not see you," I whispered. "No," she said. "They see an inheritance. And you, Sadie, they do not see you either. They see a cautionary tale." 2 days later, the family tried a new tactic on me. I was leaving the warehouse, tired and smelling of cardboard dust, when my phone rang. It was Aunt Linda. "Sadie." "Honey," she chirped. "Do you have a minute?" I stopped by my car, unlocking the door. "I have a minute." "Linda, listen, I was talking to my friend Barbara today. You remember Barbara? She owns that lovely boutique downtown. The Gilded Lily?" I vaguely remembered a store that sold $300 scarves and candles that smelled like sandalwood and money. I remember her. "Well, I was telling her about your situation," Linda said. "You know, how hard you have been working at that warehouse place. It just sounds so grueling. Honey, all that heavy lifting, it is not very ladylike, is it? It pays the bills." Linda: Of course. But Barbara is looking for a new assistant manager. It is a lovely environment, quiet, clean, surrounded by beautiful things, and she is willing to offer you the job. Start immediately." I paused. A job at a boutique sounded objectively better than the warehouse, but the hair on the back of my neck stood up. "What is the pay?" I asked. "Oh, well, it is retail. So the hourly is a little lower than what you are making now," Linda admitted breezily. "But the discount is amazing, and honestly, Sadie, Barbara is doing this as a favor to me. She knows you need a fresh start. We just want to help you get back on your feet properly. I closed my eyes. There it was. If I took the job, I would be taking a pay cut. I would be financially tighter than I was now, but more importantly, I would be saved by Aunt Linda. Every time I went to work, I would owe her. Every time I saw Barbara, I would be the charity case niece who needed a handout. It would reinforce the narrative that I could not make it on my own. It was a trap wrapped in silk, and there was another layer. If I was working retail hours, weekends and evenings, I would not be able to visit Grandma as often. I would lose my post as the sentinel. That is very generous. Linda, I said, keeping my voice even, but I am actually up for a promotion at the warehouse. I cannot leave now. There was a pause on the other end. The temperature of the call dropped 10 degrees. A promotion? Linda said, her voice tight. Doing what? Moving bigger boxes? I am moving into logistics coordination management. I lied. It is a career path. Linda, but thank Barbara for me. Sadie, do not be stubborn, she snapped. We are trying to help you. You are looking a gift horse in the mouth. Again, I am not looking for a gift horse. I said, I am buying my own horse. Goodbye. Linda, I hung up. My hands were shaking. Saying no to them always felt like jumping off a cliff. But this time, I felt the ground catch me. The following week, Grandma told me to take a half day off work. I have an appointment. She said, I need you to drive me. Doctor? I asked. Lawyer, she said. My heart hammered. Is everything okay? Everything is fine. Just drive. We drove to a part of town I rarely visited, an area with brick buildings and manicured ivy. We pulled up to a firm called Patterson. Finch Associates. It looked serious. It looked expensive. Inside, the receptionist greeted Grandma by name. Good afternoon. Mrs. Butler. Mr. Thorne is expecting you. Mr. Thorne was a man in his 50s with a suit that fit him perfectly and eyes that missed nothing. He did not speak to Grandma in a loud voice. He did not treat her like a child. Margaret, he said, shaking her hand. Good to see you. And this is my granddaughter. Sadie. Grandma said, Mr. Thorne turned to me. He did not give me the look I usually got from the family's friends, the look of pity mixed with curiosity. He looked me in the eye and extended his hand. Ms. Butler, he said, your grandmother speaks very highly of you. We sat in his office, surrounded by walls of leather-bound books. Grandma sat straighter than I had seen her in months. I brought Sadie because I want her to hear the updates. Grandma said, and I want her to know the protocol. Mr. Thorne nodded. He opened a file on his desk. As we discussed, Margaret, the estate plan has been finalized. The trust structure is in place. He turned to me. Sadie, Mr. Thorne said, treating me like a serious adult. Your grandmother has been very specific about how she wants her affairs handled. Over the last 3 years, we have built a series of safeguards into her will and her power of attorney documents. Safeguards? I asked. Mr. Thorne leaned back. Given the size of the estate and the complexity of the family dynamics, we wanted to ensure there was no room for ambiguity. He listed the rules. First, no changes can be made to the will or the estate plan without 2 independent witnesses present, neither of whom can be related to the family. Second, any signature obtained from Margaret must be video recorded to prove she is of sound mind and not under duress. Third, if anyone contests the will, there is a no contest clause. If a beneficiary challenges the validity of the documents, they are automatically disinherited. I stared at him. This was a fortress. Grandma had built a legal fortress around herself while the family thought she was knitting blankets. Does the family know about this? I asked. No, Grandma said, and they won't, until it is time. Mr. Thorne looked at me. We are entering a delicate period. Sadie, as Margaret's health declines, the pressure from the family will increase. We have seen this pattern before. They will try to get her to sign things. They will try to isolate her. He slid a business card across the desk to me. If you see anything concerning, you call me. If they try to take her to a different lawyer, you call me. If they show up with a notary, you call me. You are the eyes on the ground. I took the card. It felt heavy in my hand. Why me? I asked, looking at Grandma. Why trust me? I am the mess. I am the one who lost everything. Grandma reached over and placed her hand on my arm. You are the only one who lost everything and didn't try to take it from someone else. She said, You rebuilt it. That is why I trust you. The testing began almost immediately. The safeguards were invisible, but the family could sense resistance. Like a thief testing a locked door handle, it started small. Sadie. Cousin Mike texted me on a Wednesday. I am at the bank. They need a photo of Grandma's ID to update a beneficiary form for her old savings account. Can you snap a pic and send it to me? I stared at the text, a photo of her ID, with that, and her social security number, which they probably already had. They could do a lot of damage. I replied, I don't have her wallet on me. Mike, you should probably check with her attorney about any updates. He handles the forms now. The response was immediate. Attorney? Since when does she have an attorney for a savings account? Don't be difficult. Sadie, just get the photo. I did not reply. I let the silence sit there. 2 days later, Uncle Dale cornered me in the driveway as I was arriving. Sadie, he said, leaning against his truck, I need you to do me a favor. I have this document here. It is just a standard release form for the medical insurance. Grandma gets confused with the legal jargon. I need you to bring it in and just explain to her that she needs to sign it so we can keep her coverage going. She trusts you. She will sign it if you tell her to. I looked at the document in his hand. It was thick. It was definitely not a standard medical release. I can take it to Mr. Thorne's office for review, I said pleasantly. He checks everything before she signs now. Dale's face darkened. Thorne? The guy downtown? That guy charges $400 an hour. We do not need to waste Grandma's money on him for a simple form. Just get her to sign it. Sadie, stop playing gatekeeper. You are supposed to be helping the family, not costing us money. I am helping. Dale, I said, I am helping her follow her own rules. He spat on the ground near my shoe. You are getting a little big for your britches. Aren't you? Do not forget who bought your groceries when you were living in a basement. I felt the old shame flare up, hot and stinging, but I forced it down. I remember, I said, and I remember paying you back. I walked past him into the house. I was shaking, but I did not turn around. That evening, Grandma was sitting in her recliner, staring at the television without really watching it. She looked small. The confrontation with Dale had drained me, and I could tell she had sensed the tension from the driveway. Come here. Sadie, she said. I sat on the ottoman at her feet. They are getting desperate, she said. Dale is angry. I admitted. He thinks I am influencing you. Grandma sighed, a sound that seemed to rattle in her chest. He came to see me yesterday, she said, when you were at work. He sat right where you are sitting. What did he want? He wanted to talk about you, she said. He told me he was worried. He said you have been acting erratic lately. He said you are still traumatized from the divorce and that you are becoming possessive of me. My mouth fell open. He said I was erratic? Unstable, Grandma corrected. He used the word unstable. He told me that for my own safety, I should probably limit your visits. He offered to hire a professional nurse so you wouldn't have the burden anymore. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. They were gaslighting her. They were rewriting reality to paint me as the danger so they could remove the witness. What did you say? I whispered. Grandma looked at me, and for a second, she looked like a queen on a throne. I told him that you were the sanest person in this family, she said, and I told him that if he ever used the word unstable about you again, I would change the locks. She reached out and touched my cheek. They do not worry about me, Sadie, she said softly. They worry about what I might say. They know I have seen it all, and they are terrified that you are seeing it too. I leaned my head against her knee. I am scared. Grandma, I admitted. Good, she said. Fear keeps you sharp. But do not let them see it. That night, I stopped at a drugstore on the way home. I bought a black composition notebook. I went home to my apartment, sat at my kitchen table, and opened the first page. October 24th. I wrote, Uncle Dale asked me to get Grandma to sign a medical form without reading it. Became aggressive when I mentioned the attorney. Claimed I was costing the family money. October 22nd. Cousin Mike asked for a photo of Grandma's ID for a bank form. October 20th. Aunt Linda offered a job to get me out of the warehouse and save me. I wrote it all down. I documented the times, the dates, the specific words used. I wrote down the tone of voice. I wrote down the threats. It felt like building a wall, brick by brick, if they were going to call me unstable. I would have the proof of my sanity in black and white. I was not writing a diary. I was preparing a case file. The climax of the month was the family birthday dinner for Aunt Linda. It was held at a steakhouse, the kind with white tablecloths and waiters who scraped crumbs off the table with a little metal blade. Grandma insisted on coming. Even though she was tired, I will not let them think I'm hiding. She told me. The whole clan was there. Uncle Dale, Aunt Linda, Cousin Jessica, with her phone constantly recording, Cousin Mike, and a dozen others. I sat at the end of the table near Grandma. I wore my best blazer. I drank water. The dinner was a performance. Everyone was laughing too loud, telling stories that painted themselves as heroes. Linda talked about how much she sacrificed for the church. Dale bragged about his business. Then, the toasts began. Uncle Dale stood up, raising a glass of red wine. His face was flushed. To Linda, he boomed, "The glue that holds this family together." "Here, here," everyone shouted. And to Mom, he added, gesturing to Grandma, our matriarch, looking strong as ever. "Mom, we love you." Grandma nodded once, her face unreadable. Dale's eyes slid to me. A smirk touched the corner of his mouth. "And," he said, broadening his grin, "a special toast to Sadie." The table went quiet. Jessica pointed her phone at me. "To our little charity project," Dale said, his voice dripping with faux affection. "You have had a rough run, kiddo. But look at you, proof that this family does not abandon its own, no matter how broken they get. We carried you when you could not walk, and we are proud of that. To Sadie! To Sadie!" A few people echoed, laughing. My face burned. The humiliation was physical. It felt like a slap. He was reminding everyone, in the middle of a crowded restaurant, that I was the failure and they were the saviors. He was putting me back in the box. I gripped my water glass, staring at the tablecloth, willing myself not to cry. I would not give them the satisfaction. Then, a sound cut through the laughter. Clink. Grandma set her wineglass down on the table. It was a sharp, deliberate sound. "Stop calling her that." The room froze. The laughter died in throats. "Excuse me." "Mom?" Dale said, his smile faltering. I said, "Stop calling her that." Grandma repeated. Her voice was not loud, but it carried to the corners of the room. "She is not a project, and she is not a charity case." She looked around the table, meeting every pair of eyes. "If you want to talk about who owes who in this family," she said, "we can talk about it. We can talk about it right now." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Mike looked down at his plate. Jessica lowered her phone. Dale looked like he had swallowed a lemon. Grandma held Dale's gaze for a long 5 seconds. "Sit down, Dale," she said. He sat. Someone, I think it was Linda, let out a nervous titter. "Oh, Mom, he was just joking. You know Dale's sense of humor." Grandma did not smile. The energy at the table had shifted. The air had been sucked out of the room. They looked at her, and for the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. They realized, collectively, that the old woman at the head of the table was not a prop. She was a loaded gun. I reached under the table and found Grandma's hand. She squeezed my fingers, her grip hard and dry. We left early. I drove Grandma home in silence. When we got inside, she did not go to her chair. She walked to the hallway closet. "Sadie," she said, "come here." I followed her. She pointed to the top shelf, way in the back, behind the winter coats. "There is a metal box," she said. "Gray. Lock on the front. Bring it down. I reached up. The box was heavy, cold steel against my palms. I brought it down and set it on the hallway table. Grandma pulled a small key from her pocket. She did not unlock it. She just placed her hand on the lid. This goes to Mr. Thorne tomorrow. She said, "What is inside?" I asked. She looked at me. Her face was tired, etched with the exhaustion of the dinner, but her eyes were clear. Everything. She said, "The letters, the I O us. They think I forgot. The recordings." She tapped the lid. "There is a label on the inside." She said, "I wrote it for you." I looked at the box. "Can I read it?" She nodded. I lifted the lid. Taped to the inside metal was a white index card. Grandma's handwriting was shaky but bold. "If they ever ask you to prove your worth, don't show them their lies." I stared at the words. "They are going to come for you, Sadie," Grandma said softly. "After I'm gone. They are going to try to break you because you are the only one who knows the truth." I closed the box. The latch clicked shut. "Let them come," I said. And for the first time in 7 years, I meant it. The call came at 2:00 in the morning on a Thursday. It was not a frantic call from a family member. It was the automated alert system Grandma wore on her wrist. The device had detected a fall. I drove to the hospital with my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The streets were empty, slick with rain, and every red light felt like a personal insult. When I arrived at the emergency room of St. Jude's, I expected to be the first one there. I was wrong. They had swarmed. Uncle Dale was already in the waiting room, pacing with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice booming about priority care and private rooms. Aunt Linda was speaking to a triage nurse, her hand clutching her chest in a performance of maternal agony that would have won an award. Cousin Jessica was sitting in a plastic chair, typing furiously on her phone, likely updating her social media status to solicit prayers for the rock of our family. They had not come to help. They had come to secure the perimeter. When I walked in, the air in the room shifted. Dale lowered his phone. Linda stopped mid-sob. They looked at me not as a grieving granddaughter, but as a security breach. "I thought you were working early shifts," Dale said, not bothering with a hello. "I am here for Grandma," I said, walking past him toward the desk. "She is stable," Linda called out, stepping in front of me. "The doctor said it was a minor cardiac event, a warning shot. She is resting. Family only right now. Sadie, I am family." I said, close family," Linda said, her voice dropping to that sickly sweet register she used when she was being cruel. "Children, we need to make decisions. You can wait here." I did not wait. I sidestepped her and walked up to the nurse's station. The nurse looked exhausted, her eyes scanning a computer screen. "I am Sadie Butler." I said, "I am Margaret Butler's medical proxy." The nurse looked up. She typed my name into the system. Her expression softened. "Yes, Ms. Butler," she said. "We have your file on record. She has been asking for you." I felt the eyes of my family boring into my back. I could feel their shock, then their anger. They did not know. They assumed that because they were the loudest, they were the leaders. They did not know that 3 months ago, Grandma had quietly signed the paperwork that put me in charge of her medical decisions, specifically excluding her children. I followed the nurse through the double doors. Behind me, I heard Dale's voice rise. "Now wait a minute. I am her son. You cannot let her back there and keep me out." The doors swung shut, sealing out their noise. Grandma looked small in the hospital bed. The wires and tubes made her look frail, a stark contrast to the iron-willed woman who had stared down the family at dinner. But her eyes were open, and they were alert. "They are out there, aren't they?" she whispered. "Like vultures," I said, taking her hand. It was cold. "They want to know if I am dying." She said, "They need to know if they should start ordering the flowers or the moving trucks." "You are not dying," I said firmly. "The doctor said it was dehydration and stress. You just need rest." She squeezed my hand. "Do not let them in alone. Sadie, they will try to ask me things. They will try to get me to agree to things while I'm weak. I promise, I said, I will not leave. I kept that promise for 3 days. I slept in the uncomfortable vinyl chair next to her bed. I drank terrible hospital coffee. I used my vacation days from the warehouse without hesitation. The family circled. They took shifts, not to comfort Grandma, but to monitor me. They hated that I was the gatekeeper. They hated that the doctors spoke to me first. On the second afternoon, I went to the cafeteria to get a sandwich. I was gone for 20 minutes. When I came back, I found Cousin Jessica standing at the nurse's station, leaning over the counter, twirling a strand of her hair. She was talking to a young male nurse, her voice low and flirtatious. "It is just so hard. You know," she was saying, "we are all so worried about her mental state. She's been saying such strange things lately. Confusing people, forgetting promises. I just need to know, off the record. Has she seemed lucid to you? Or is it, dementia?" The nurse looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I really cannot discuss patient specifics without—" "Oh, I know, Jessica interrupted, touching his arm. "But we are family. We just want to protect her. If she is not in her right mind, we need to know so we can step in. For her own good." She was fishing. She was trying to get a medical professional to go on record saying Grandma was incompetent. If they could prove incompetence, they could challenge the will. They could challenge the medical proxy. I stepped forward. "Jessica," I said, my voice sharp. She jumped. Pulling her hand back from the nurse's arm, she spun around, her face flushing guilty red. "Sadie, I was just checking on Grandma's stats." "No, you were asking for a diagnosis you are not entitled to," I said. I turned to the nurse. "I am Margaret Butler's medical power of attorney," I said. "My name is Sadie Butler. This woman is not authorized to receive any medical information regarding the patient's cognitive status, prognosis, or care plan. If any information is shared with her, I will be filing a formal HIPAA violation complaint against this hospital and you personally within the hour. Do we understand each other?" The nurse's eyes went wide. He straightened up immediately. "Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I have not shared anything." "Good," I said. I turned back to Jessica. Her shock had been replaced by a cold, hard sneer. "You are enjoying this, aren't you?" she hissed. "Playing the boss. Go home, Jessica," I said. "Grandma is sleeping." She grabbed her purse. "You think you are so smart, Sadie, but you are just a glorified secretary. When she is gone, you will go back to being nothing." She stormed down the hallway, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the linoleum. The tension broke the next morning. I was in the hallway, stretching my legs, when Cousin Mike cornered me near the vending machines. Mike was the one who owed Grandma $5,000 for a market crash that never happened. He looked tired, unshaven, and aggressive. "You need to go home. Sadie," he said, "you have been here for 72 hours. You look like hell." "I am fine." "Mike, no, you are not," he said, stepping into my personal space. "You are obsessing. It is weird. Sadie, you are acting like you own her. I am acting like I care about her." "Bull," he spat. "You are hovering because you are terrified she is going to change her mind about something before she kicks the bucket. You are trying to secure the bag." I looked at him. I looked at the grease stains on his collar and the desperation in his eyes. "Is that what you think?" I asked. "I know it," he said. "You are always here now. Suddenly, after 7 years of being the family screw-up, you are the golden girl. It is convenient. Sadie, real convenient." Something inside me snapped. It was a quiet snap, like a dry twig breaking, but it released 7 years of suppressed rage. I looked him dead in the eye. "I have always been here." "Mike," I said, my voice steady. "I was here on Tuesdays when you were at the casino. I was here on Christmas Eve when you left early to go to a party. I was here when she needed her gutters cleaned and you wouldn't answer your phone." I took a step toward him, forcing him to step back. "You are just noticing I'm here because now you think money is involved." I said, You measure presents in dollars. I measure it in days. That is the difference between us." The words hung in the air, vibrating. I saw the recognition in his eyes, the knowledge that I was right, and the immediate, defensive hatred that followed it. He sneered, "You will get yours. Sadie, do not worry. We all know you took money from her. We know you are bleeding her dry." He turned and walked away. I stood there, shaking. I regretted saying it. Not because it wasn't true, but because I had shown my hand. I had engaged. Grandma had warned me not to argue, and I had let my anger take the wheel. Grandma was discharged 2 days later. I got her settled at home, hired a private nurse, using Grandma's funds, authorized by Mr. Thorne, to cover the hours I was at work, and finally went back to my own apartment. I sat on my couch in the dark, Mike's accusation echoing in my head. "We all know you took money from her." Is that what they thought? Is that the story they were telling themselves to justify their cruelty? I opened my laptop. I logged into my old email account, the one I hadn't organized in years. I went to the search bar and typed in family. Hundreds of emails populated, a digital paper trail of the last 7 years. I started reading. From Aunt Linda. Subject: help. Date: November 2019. Sadie, we can bring you some leftover turkey, but honestly, you need to learn to budget better. It is embarrassing that you are asking for food. We are helping you this time, but do not expect this to be a habit. I remembered that email. I hadn't asked for food, Linda had offered, and when I accepted, she had sent this. From Uncle Dale. Subject: car repairs. Date: February 2020. I paid the mechanic. You can pay me back when you can, but try to be faster than last time. You would be nothing without this family. Sadie, remember that. I checked my bank records. I had paid him back 4 days later. From Cousin Jessica. Subject: Christmas. Date: December 20 to 21. Please do not wear that old dress to the party. It makes everyone uncomfortable. I have some old clothes I was going to donate to Goodwill. I will drop them off. You owe us for including you. I read for an hour. The pattern was undeniable. We are helping you. You owe us. Don't embarrass us. The charity case label wasn't just an insult. It was a leash. As long as I was the charity case, they had power. As long as I was the broken one, they were the good ones. They needed me to be beneath them so they could feel tall. And now that I was standing up, they were panicking. The next day, I had a meeting with Mr. Thorne. Grandma had insisted I go alone. He welcomed me into his office and closed the door. He looked serious. "How is she?" he asked. "Recovering." I said, "But the wolves are circling." Mr. Thorne nodded. He opened a thick file on his desk. "We need to review the structure of the estate," he said. "Margaret wanted you to understand the mechanics of what will happen when she passes. It is unconventional." He pushed a document toward me. "Your grandmother has created a performance-based distribution plan," he said. I looked at the paper. It was a spreadsheet. "Most wills distribute assets based on lineage," Thorne explained. "Equal shares to children, then grandchildren. Margaret has rejected that model. Her will distributes assets based on what she calls the ledger of care and honesty." He tapped the document. "She has documented every loan given to family members over the last 10 years. He said, "The will stipulates that any unpaid debt is deducted from that individual's inheritance, with interest." I scanned the list. Dale owed $12,000, Mike owed $8,000, Jessica owed $4,000. And here's the other side, Thorne said. He flipped the page. Beneficiaries who have repaid loans, or who have provided documented care, hours spent driving, cleaning, sitting in hospitals, receive credits to their portion of the estate. I looked at my name. My column was full of credits, and this is the part that concerns you specifically. "Sadie," Thorne said. He pulled out a separate sheet. "The family has been telling a story that you have been borrowing money from Margaret for years and never paying it back. They have told this to other relatives, to neighbors, even to the pastor." I felt sick. Mike hadn't just been being mean, he had been repeating a script. Margaret knew this, Thorne said. She anticipated it. That is why she kept the receipts. He opened a folder. Inside were copies of my checks, my bank transfers, and notes in Grandma's handwriting. Sadie repaid in full. Sadie insisted on interest. She has proof, Thorne said. Irrefutable. Legal proof that you are the only one who is solvent. When this is read out loud, it will destroy their narrative. I stared at the receipts. They are going to hate me, I whispered. They already hate you. Sadie, Thorne said gently, they hate you because you mirror their failures. This will just force them to look in the glass. When I went to Grandma's house that evening, she was sitting up in bed, looking stronger. Did you see Mr. Thorne? She asked. I did. I said, I saw the ledger. She nodded. Go to the closet. Sadie, get the binder. I retrieved the green binder. Open the red tab, she said. My heart raced. Sadie, do not open until I say. I sat on the edge of the bed and flipped to the back. It wasn't legal documents. It was letters, dozens of them. I picked up the first one. It was dated 7 years ago. Dear Sadie, today I saw you crying in your car after the Christmas party. I saw Linda give you that bag of expired food. I wanted to go out there and yell at them. But I knew you needed to find your own feet. You are stronger than you think. I am proud of you for walking away. I picked up another. Dear Sadie, Dale told everyone at the picnic that you were begging him for money. I know you weren't. I saw you pay for your own gas. He lies to make himself feel big. I am writing this down so I don't forget. I read through them, tears streaming down my face. She had been watching. All those years when I felt invisible, when I felt like the family's punching bag, Grandma had been witnessing it all. She hadn't just been passive. She had been documenting their cruelty. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice cracking. Because if I had defended you, they would have said I was just a soft-hearted old woman, she said. They would have said I was confused. They would have dismissed it as emotion. She reached out and touched the letters. I needed proof, she said. I needed to build a wall of facts so high they could never climb over it. These letters, combined with the ledger, are not just memories. Sadie, they are testimony. She looked at me fiercely. I let them call you a charity case for 7 years because I knew the truth would cost them more if I waited. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I did it for you. I buried my face in her quilt and sobbed. I wasn't crying for the pain anymore. I was crying because I had never been alone. 2 days later, the family tried their Hail Mary. Uncle Dale called me. His voice was different, forced, jovial, but with an underlying current of panic. Sadie, he said, we need to talk. Can you come by the house? Just for a quick chat. I met him on his front porch. I didn't go inside. What is it? Dale? He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Sadie, we know things are getting complicated with Mom. Her health is failing, and we know you have been spending a lot of time with her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. We want to make sure you are taken care of, he said. We know you have struggled, and we know that probating a will can take months, even years. It is a hassle. He held the envelope out to me. There is a check in here for $20,000, he said. Cash, from me and Linda. It is a gift, a thank you for helping out with Mom. I looked at the envelope. $20,000. It was a lot of money. It was half my annual salary. And? I asked. And, he said, licking his lips, we just have a small document for you to sign. Just a standard family agreement. It basically says that you accept this gift in lieu of any future claims to the estate. It saves everyone the trouble of legal fees. It is a win-win. You get cash now. Guaranteed. No waiting. I stared at him. It was a bribe. They were terrified that Grandma had left me something significant, or worse, that she had given me control. They wanted to buy me out for $20,000 before the will was read. They still thought I was the desperate girl who needed their charity. I reached out and took the envelope. Dale smiled, his shoulders relaxing. Good girl, he said. I knew you were smart. I opened the envelope. I looked at the check. Then I put it back in. I handed the envelope back to him. "No, thank you." "Dale," I said. His smile vanished. "Excuse me?" I said no. I repeated, "I do not want your money." "Sadie, be realistic," he snapped. "You do not know what is in that will. You could end up with nothing. Mom is confused. She might have forgotten you entirely. This is a sure thing. Do not be an idiot. I'm not doing this for money," I said, "and I'm not signing anything." I turned to walk away. "You are making a mistake," he yelled after me. "You are going to regret this. Sadie, you are going to wish you took the deal." I kept walking. That night, I sat with Grandma. She was sleeping peacefully. I realized then that the will reading was not going to be a grieving ceremony. It was not going to be a family gathering. It was going to be an ambush. Grandma had set a trap. She had baited it with their own greed and arrogance. She had let them dig their own graves with every insult, every unpaid loan, every lie, and she had placed me at the center of it. I looked at the charity starter kit bag I still kept in my trunk, the macaroni and the toilet paper. They had spent 7 years writing a story about me. They had no idea that Grandma had spent 7 years writing the ending. I was not safe. I was exposed. But for the first time, I wasn't the victim. I was the witness. And when the time came, I wouldn't have to say a word. The dead would speak for me. Grandma came home on a Tuesday, carried through the front door not by her sons, but by 2 EMTs who navigated the steps with professional indifference. The stroke had been minor in medical terms, a warning shot across the bow, but it had stripped away her independence. She could no longer walk unassisted. She needed help bathing. She needed help cutting her food. The house, usually a sanctuary of dust motes and ticking clocks, became a war room. "We need a schedule," Aunt Linda announced, slapping a legal pad onto the dining table. "We need 24-hour coverage. Family first. We do not need strangers in this house stealing the silver." I sat in the corner, watching. The performance had begun. "I can take Mondays from 10 to 11, Cousin Jessica volunteered, tapping her long acrylic nails on the table. "But I have yoga at noon, so someone has to relieve me sharp. I can do Tuesday evenings," Uncle Dale said, leaning back in his chair. "But I cannot do any lifting. My back is acting up again. I will be the supervisory presence." They carved up Grandma's life like a Thanksgiving turkey, but they only wanted the white meat. They volunteered for the easy slots, the mid-morning visits when she was alert, the dinner hours when there was food involved. Nobody volunteered for the nights. Nobody volunteered for the bathroom trips. Nobody volunteered for the showers. "I will take the nights," I said quietly from my corner. The table went silent. They looked at me with a mixture of relief and suspicion. "Every night?" Linda asked. "That is a lot of work." "Sadie, you have a job. I will sleep on the cot in her room," I said. "I will do the morning hygiene routine before I leave for work. I will do the weekends." "Well, if you are sure," Dale said, quickly closing the loop before I could change my mind. "That settles it. Sadie is on the night shift. We will handle the day-to-day management." Management. That was the word they used. They wanted to manage the asset. I wanted to care for the grandmother. The next 3 weeks were a blur of exhaustion. My life became a loop of warehouse spreadsheets, traffic, and the smell of antiseptic and lavender at Grandma's house. I learned how to change sheets while someone was still in the bed. I learned how to crush pills into applesauce so they wouldn't choke her. The family visits were theatrical productions. Aunt Linda would arrive at 2 in the afternoon with a bouquet of flowers. She would sit by Grandma's bed for 20 minutes, talking loudly about her church group, then spend 40 minutes in the kitchen rearranging Grandma's cupboards because they were disorganized. She would snap a photo of the flowers, post it on Facebook with the caption, "Bringing beauty to our matriarch," and leave before Grandma needed to use the restroom. Cousin Mike would show up, sit in the living room watching sports on Grandma's TV at full volume, and shout questions down the hall. "You need anything?" "Grandma? No? Okay. Good." I came in at 6 o'clock every evening. I was the one who cleaned up the mess Linda made in the kitchen. I was the one who turned off the TV Mike left blaring. I was the one who helped Grandma into her nightgown. washing her feet with a warm washcloth because her circulation was poor. There were no photos of this. There were no posts. One night, around 3 a.m, Grandma woke up in pain. Her legs were cramping. I spent an hour massaging her calves, rubbing the knots out of the atrophied muscles while the house settled around us. "I am sorry. Sadie," she whispered in the dark. "For what?" I asked, my hands moving rhythmically over her skin. "For this," she said. "You are the only one doing the heavy lifting. The others, they just come to watch the show." I smiled in the darkness. "I am not doing it for them." "Grandma, I know," she said. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Her grip was weak, but her skin was warm. "That is the real love. Sadie, the love that cleans the mess. The rest is just noise." The family noticed I was tired. They smelled blood. One evening, I was in the kitchen making tea, dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Cousin Jessica wandered in. She was wearing a designer tracksuit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "You look wrecked." "Sadie," she said, leaning against the counter. "I am fine. Jessica, just a long week." "Are you sure you are eating enough?" she asked, her voice dripping with faux concern. "I mean, we know things have been tight for you. Are you still struggling? Because if you are doing all this work hoping for a payout, you might be disappointed. Grandma's care is expensive. There might not be much left." She was baiting me. She wanted me to snap. She wanted me to say, "I need the money," so she could run back to the others and say, "See? The charity case is just working for a check." I poured the boiling water into the mug. I watched the steam rise. "I am not struggling. Jessica," I said calmly, "my finances are balanced, and I'm not here for a payout. I am here because she is my grandmother." Jessica laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. "Oh, please. Everyone has a price. Sadie, even you. Especially you. You are just playing the long game." I picked up the tea. "The tea is for Grandma." I said, "Excuse me." I walked past her. I did not engage. I did not defend myself. I had learned that my defense was their ammunition. Grandma's mind remained sharp, even as her body betrayed her. One afternoon, I was sorting her mail by the bedside. She was propped up on pillows, looking out the window at the oak tree in the front yard. "Open the bottom drawer of the nightstand," she said. I opened it. Underneath a stack of crossword puzzles was a small digital voice recorder. I stared at it. "You have been recording them?" I asked. "Only when I have to," she said. "Only when they start rewriting history." She pointed a trembling finger at the device. "Last week, Dale told me he never borrowed that $2,000 for his car repair. He sat right there and told me I was imagining it. He said, 'Mom, you are getting confused. I paid you back in cash.'" She closed her eyes. I turned the recorder on. "Sadie, I have him on tape admitting he still owes it, from 3 years ago. I have Linda on tape asking for money for a medical procedure that turned out to be a cruise." "Why?" I asked. "Because I am tired," she said. "I am tired of the gaslighting. They act like nothing happened the moment it is convenient for them. They count on me being too old or too polite to call them liars." She looked at me, her eyes hard. "I am not polite anymore." The endgame began with a phone call from Mr. Thorne. He called a family meeting. He did not call it a reading exactly. He called it a formal disclosure of the estate plan. He cited Grandma's declining health and the need to clarify the asset structure while she was still competent to affirm it. The family was furious. "Why do we need a lawyer involved?" Uncle Dale shouted into the phone when I told him the time. "We are her family. We can handle this around the kitchen table." "Mr. Thorne insists," I said, repeating the line Grandma had told me to use. "It is standard procedure for an estate of this complexity." "Complexity? What complexity?" "It is a house and a bank account," Dale yelled. He did not know about the trusts. He did not know about the ledger. The meeting was set for Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Thorne established clear rules. Witnesses would be present. The session would be video recorded. Grandma would make a statement confirming her sound mind at the beginning of the session. The family scoffed. "So dramatic," Aunt Linda muttered when she came over on Wednesday. "She is letting that lawyer milk her for fees. Witnesses? Honestly, it is insulting. It told me everything I needed to know. They were insulted by accountability. They were offended by the presence of witnesses because witnesses made it harder to lie." 2 days before the meeting, the bomb dropped. I arrived at the house at 5 o'clock to find a strange car in the driveway. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Uncle Dale was standing in the living room, holding a piece of paper. Aunt Linda was smiling, a tight, victorious smile. Cousin Mike was leaning against the mantel, looking smug. "Sadie," Dale said. "Good timing. We have some news." I looked at Grandma. She was sitting in her wheelchair by the window. She looked pale. "What news?" I asked. "Mom remembered something." Dale said. He waved the paper. "She wrote this a few months ago. She promised the house to me." My stomach dropped. "Let me see that." I said. He held it out but didn't let me take it. It was a piece of notebook paper. On it, in handwriting that looked shaky and disjointed, were the words, "I, Margaret Butler, give my home at 402 Elm Street to my son Dale Butler upon my death, in gratitude for his care." It was signed Margaret Butler. "It is dated 4 months ago," Dale said, "before she got really bad. We found it in her Bible." I looked at Grandma. She was staring at Dale with an expression I had never seen before. It was not confusion, it was cold, absolute loathing. "Grandma?" I asked. "Did you write this?" The room went silent. Dale leaned in, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You remember, don't you? Mom, you wrote it the day I fixed the porch." Grandma slowly turned her head. She looked at the paper, then she looked at Dale. "I never wrote that," she said. Her voice was raspy, but the words were clear. Dale's face turned red. "Mom, you are confused. You forget things. I do not forget my own handwriting," she said. "And I do not forget that you never fixed the porch. You hired a man to do it and sent me the bill." Linda stepped forward. "Now, Mom, let us not get agitated. We know you meant to do it. Maybe you just forgot the specific day." I realized then what they had done. They had forged it. They had tried to copy her shaky handwriting, thinking that her confusion would cover their tracks. They were trying to preempt the will reading. If they had a signed document, they could tie up the estate in court for years. "Mr. Thorne needs to see this," I said. "Oh, we do not need Thorne," Dale said quickly. "This is a personal note. It is a legal claim," I said, "and if it is real, a handwriting expert will verify it." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling Mr. Thorne." "Don't you dare," Mike said. Stepping forward, I dialed. I put it on speaker. "Mr. Thorne's office," the receptionist answered. "This is Sadie Butler," I said. My eyes locked on Dale. "My uncle has produced a handwritten note claiming the house. Grandma denies writing it. We need an immediate forensic analysis." Dale snatched the paper back. "You are blowing this out of proportion," he shouted. Grandma spoke again. "Bring it to the reading on Friday." "Dale," she said, "if it is real, bring it to the reading." She stared him down. "But if you bring a forgery into a legal proceeding," she added, "Mr. Thorne will have you arrested for fraud." Dale turned purple. He crumbled the paper into his pocket. "We will see," he muttered. They left 10 minutes later. The air in the house was thick with the toxicity of what they had just attempted. The night before the reading, the house was very quiet. Grandma declined dinner. She asked me to help her into her wheelchair and push her to the closet. "Get the blue dress," she said, "the one with the white collar." I pulled it out. It was simple, elegant. "Is this for tomorrow?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "And the pearls?" I laid them out on the dresser. She looked at me. She looked very tired. The fight with Dale had taken something vital from her. She seemed thinner, almost transparent. "Sadie, come sit," she said. I sat on the floor by her wheelchair, resting my head near her hand. "Tomorrow is going to be ugly," she said. I know. I said. They are going to yell. She said. They are going to cry. They are going to say terrible things about me. And they are going to say terrible things about you. I don't care what they say about me. You have to promise me something, she said. Anything. When it starts, she said, looking down at me, when the truth comes out and they realize what I have done, you must not argue with them. But, no, she interrupted, do not fight them. Do not try to explain. Do not try to justify my decisions. You sit there, you breathe, and you let the truth stand on its own. She smoothed my hair. They made you small so they could feel big. Sadie, for 7 years, they used you as a stepping stool. Tomorrow, I am kicking the stool out from under them. But you cannot be down in the mud with them when I do it. She took a deep, rattling breath. You do not have to win. Sadie, you just have to be free. That is what the money is for. Not for happiness. Happiness is your job. The money is for freedom. Freedom from them. Freedom from their help. Freedom to never let anyone call you a charity case again. I started to cry. I knew, with a sudden, crushing certainty, that this was the last conversation we would ever have. She was speaking in the past tense. She was giving me the epilogue. I love you. Grandma, I whispered. I know, she said. Now, help me to bed. I have to be ready. I did not sleep that night. I lay on the cot in her room, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. It was shallow, irregular. At 6 a.m, I got up to make coffee. I checked my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Uncle Dale, 2 from Aunt Linda, 1 from Jessica. They were panicking. The reality of the meeting was setting in. They were realizing that their charity case niece and their confused mother were about to put them on trial. I opened a text message to Dale. I typed, "Please stop. Just let her have peace." I stared at the words. Please stop. It was a plea. It was the old Sadie, the one who begged for scraps of kindness. I deleted it. They would not stop because I asked. They would only stop when they were forced to stop. I typed a new message. See you at 10 o'clock. I hit send. I put the phone down and walked back into the bedroom to wake Grandma. But as I stood in the doorway, listening to the silence of the room, I realized that the blue dress on the dresser would never be worn. The silence was too heavy. The rhythm of the breathing had stopped. Grandma had gone. She had left me the weapons. She had left me the map. But she had left the room before the fight began. I walked to the bed. I kissed her cold forehead. Okay, Grandma, I whispered. I went to the closet and took out the blue dress. I would bring it with me anyway. I would put it on the chair next to me at the meeting. I picked up the phone to call Mr. Thorne. It was time to read the will. The funeral had been a blur of black umbrellas and insincere eulogies. Uncle Dale had spoken about Grandma's generosity, a coded word for her money. Aunt Linda had wept into a lace handkerchief that remained suspiciously dry. I had stood at the back, far away from the canopy, feeling the rain on my face and knowing that the real goodbye had happened in the quiet of her bedroom the night before she died. Now, 3 days later, we were in the conference room of Patterson, Finch Associates. The room was sterile, smelling of lemon polish and expensive carpet. A long mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by 12 leather chairs. At the head of the table sat Mr. Thorne. To his right sat a stenographer. To his left sat 2 people I did not know, a man and a woman in gray suits, sitting with their hands folded on empty notepads, the witnesses. The family arrived in a wave of performance art. Uncle Dale wore a suit that was slightly too tight, his face flushed with the anticipation of a payday. Aunt Linda was dressed in mourning black, but she wore her diamond earrings, the ones she usually saved for weddings. Cousin Jessica and Mike trailed behind them, checking their phones. Sadie! Linda cried out when she saw me sitting in the corner seat. She rushed over and enveloped me in a hug that smelled of heavy floral perfume and aggression. We are all just holding on to each other, aren't we? It is so hard. I stood stiffly in her arms. It is hard. Linda, I said. She pulled back. her eyes scanning my face, looking for weakness. "You look tired. Honey, I hope you are prepared. These things can be technical. We just want to get through it and start the healing process." Translation: "We want the check so we can go shopping." They took their seats. They filled the room with the noise of their confidence. Dale cracked a joke about the weather. Mike complained about the parking. They were treating this like a board meeting where they were the majority shareholders. I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap. I felt like a defendant in a trial I had never asked for, waiting for a verdict I already knew. "Mister," Thorne cleared his throat. The sound was not loud, but it cut through the chatter like a knife. "Good morning," he said. The room quieted. "We are here to execute the last will and testament of Margaret Rose Butler." Thorne said, "Before we begin, I must introduce Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Clark. They are independent witnesses appointed by the court to observe these proceedings. They are here to ensure that the protocols established by Mrs. Butler are followed to the letter." Uncle Dale leaned back in his chair and rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. "So dramatic," he muttered, loud enough to be heard. "It is a will reading, not a murder trial. Can we just get to the numbers?" I watched Miss Clark, the female witness. She did not react. She simply picked up her pen and wrote a sentence on her notepad. She noted the time. She noted the speaker. It was a small action, but it sent a chill down my spine. The consequences had already begun. "Mr." Thorne ignored the comment, but his eyes hardened slightly. "I will begin by reading a statement regarding Mrs. Butler's capacity," he said. He read a document from Grandma's neurologist, dated 2 weeks before her death, certifying her cognitive clarity. He read a sworn statement from a notary who had video recorded the signing of the will. He built a fortress of legality around the document sitting in front of him. When he was finished, he opened the blue folder. The family leaned forward. I could practically hear their heartbeats. "The will of Margaret Butler does not begin with the distribution of assets." Thorne said, "It begins with a personal statement." Mrs. Butler instructed that this letter be read aloud before any discussion of finance. He picked up a sheet of creamy, heavy paper. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Thorne began to read. "To my family, if you are hearing this, I am gone. And if I am gone, you are likely sitting in a room together, wondering how much I have left you. You are wondering who gets the house, who gets the stocks, who gets the silver. But before you count your money, you must hear the truth. For the last 7 years, I have watched this family destroy one of its own. I have watched you take Sadie, a woman who lost everything through no fault of her own, and turn her into a punchline. I have watched you call her a charity case. I have watched you hand her bags of expired food as a joke. I have watched you use her pain to make yourselves feel superior." Thorne paused. The room was deadly silent. Aunt Linda's mouth was slightly open. Dale was staring at the table, his face turning a mottled red. "You thought I did not see it," Thorne continued, reading Grandma's words. "You thought because I was old, I was blind. You thought because I was quiet, I was agreeing with you. But I saw every eye roll. I heard every whisper. I saw you invite her to dinners only to mock her poverty. I saw you weaponize the word help until it became a leash. You treated Sadie like a burden. But in my final years, she was the only one who carried me. She was the only one who wanted nothing from me but my company. So, I have written this will to reflect the reality of this family, not the version you tell your friends at church, not the version you post on social media, but the truth." Thorne lowered the paper. The silence was thick, suffocating. Cousin Jessica looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. Mike looked furious. That is ridiculous." Linda sputtered, her voice high and thin. She was obviously confused. "She didn't mean that. Sadie must have put those ideas in her head." Thorne did not look at Linda. He picked up the next document. "We will now move to the accounting of the estate," he said. He opened a spreadsheet. It was projected onto a screen on the wall behind him. It was the ledger. "Mrs. Butler was a meticulous record keeper," Thorne said. She tracked every financial transaction between herself and her family members for the last decade. This will stipulates that all outstanding debts to the estate must be settled before any inheritance is distributed. He looked at the first line. Dale Butler. He read, Loan for automotive repairs, June 2018, principal, $2,000, accrued interest at 3%, $480, status, unpaid. Dale slammed his hand on the table. That was a gift, he shouted. She told me to keep it. Thorne looked at the document. I have a notation here in Mrs. Butler's handwriting dated 1 month ago. He said, Dale asked me again to forgive the loan. I told him no. He said he would pay it next week. He never did. Thorne continued. Loan for business investment. Dale Butler. January 2020. $10,000. Status, unpaid. He moved down the list. Linda Miller. Loan for cruise vacation. Disguised as medical expenses. $5,000. Unpaid. Jessica Miller. Wedding dress assistance. $1,500. Unpaid. Michael Butler. Real estate investment. $5,000. Unpaid. The numbers rolled out like a drumbeat. The room was filled with the sound of their secrets being read into the public record. Then, Thorne reached my name. Sadie Butler. He read. The family looked up, their eyes hungry. This was it. This was where I would be exposed. Loan for rent assistance. May 2019. $600. Thorne paused. Status, repaid in full. June 2019. He read the next one. Loan for groceries. February 2019. $200. Status, repaid in full. March 2019. He scrolled down. There were 5 entries for me. Every single one was marked repaid. Thorne took off his glasses and looked at the family. According to these records, Sadie Butler is the only member of this family who has no outstanding debt to the estate. In fact, she is the only one who has ever repaid a loan in full. The narrative cracked. I could hear it splintering in the room. The story they had told themselves, that I was the leech and they were the providers, dissolved under the weight of the math. This is fake, Mike spat out. You cooked the books. Sadie. You got to her computer. I did not speak. I remembered Grandma's instruction. Let the truth stand on its own. Ms. Clark, the witness, wrote another note. Thorne moved to the next section. Because of these outstanding debts, Thorne said, the respective amounts will be deducted from your inheritances. However, there is a further condition. He turned the page. Mrs. Butler has established the Sadie Butler Dignity Trust. I looked up. Startled, I had not known about this. Thorne continued. A significant portion of the liquid assets, specifically, the funds that would have constituted the discretionary bonuses for her children and grandchildren, has been placed into this trust. The distribution of these funds is conditional. He looked directly at Jessica. The will states, any beneficiary who has publicly shamed, mocked, or humiliated Sadie Butler during the period of 2019 to 2026 shall forfeit their access to this bonus. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. That is subjective, she said. You cannot prove mockery. Thorne picked up a stack of paper. Mrs. Butler included an appendix. He said, he read from the top sheet. Incident, Christmas, 2025. Gift of charity starter kit, containing expired food and toilet paper. Presented by Dale Butler and Linda Miller. Photos taken by Jessica Miller. Incident. Facebook post dated November 12, 2024. Jessica Miller posted a photo of Sadie's car with the caption, Some people just refuse to upgrade. Charity case. Incident. Family dinner. October 2025. Dale Butler proposed a toast to Sadie, the charity project. Thorne looked up. Mrs. Butler attached screenshots of the social media posts, he said, and she included the transcript of the toast, which she recorded on her phone. The color drained from Jessica's face. Dale looked like he was choking, because of these documented violations of the conduct clause. Thorne said, the sums allocated for Dale Butler, Linda Miller, and Jessica Miller totaling approximately $150,000, are forfeited. Forfeited? Linda shrieked. Where does it go? It goes to the Sadie Butler Dignity Trust, Thorne said, which will be used to fund scholarships for divorced women attempting to rebuild their careers. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of people watching a fortune evaporate because of their own cruelty, but Thorne was not done. However, he said, Mrs. Butler was a woman of hope. She believed in redemption. He pulled out 4 smaller envelopes. She has set aside a separate, immediate cash gift of $5,000 for each of you. The tension in the room released slightly. $5,000 was not $100,000, but it was something, but, Thorne added, raising a finger, to receive this check, you must sign a document today. He slid a single sheet of paper down the table. This document acknowledges that the loan ledger is accurate. He said, it acknowledges that you owe the estate the money listed, and that Sadie Butler owes nothing. It is a simple statement of fact. Sign it, and you get the check. He placed a pen in the center of the table. It was the ultimate test. Grandma was offering them $5,000 to simply admit the truth, to admit that I was not the charity case, to admit that they were the debtors. Dale stared at the paper. He stared at the pen. If he signed it, he was admitting he lied about the car loan. If he signed it, he was destroying the Sadie is a failure story he had told his friends for 7 years. I am not signing that. Dale growled. It is a trap. It is an admission of guilt. It is an admission of truth. Mister, Thorne corrected, I am not signing it either, Linda said. Crossing her arms, I will not be humiliated like this. I will not say I owe money I do not owe. One by one, they refused. Not one of them would pick up the pen. They would rather lose $5,000 than admit they were wrong. They would rather forfeit money than give me an inch of respect. Grandma had been right. She had told me they would do this. They would rather be right than be rich, she had said. Thorne collected the envelopes. Very well, he said. The checks are voided. Then, the atmosphere shifted. The air in the room grew colder, sharper. There is one final matter, Thorne said. He looked at Uncle Dale. Mr. Butler, 2 days before Mrs. Butler's passing, you presented a claim regarding the residential property at 402 Elm Street. You claimed to be in possession of a handwritten note from the deceased, deeding the house to you. Dale straightened his tie. He looked nervous, but defiant. That is right, he said. I have it right here. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumbled piece of notebook paper. He smoothed it out on the table. She wrote this. Dale said, It is her handwriting. It overrides the will. It says the house is mine. Thorne did not touch the paper. He simply looked at it. Mr. Butler, he said, his voice dropping an octave, before you submit that document to this court of record, I must inform you of the findings of our investigation. Investigation? Dale said. You haven't even seen it yet. We saw a photograph of it. Thorne said, the one your sister Linda sent to her husband that evening. We analyzed the metadata of that image. But more importantly, we analyzed the handwriting from the sample you showed Sadie. Thorne opened a black folder. We hired a forensic document examiner. He said, based on the photo, he identified several inconsistencies, but the most damning piece of evidence is not the handwriting. It is the paper. Thorne pointed to the note. That sheet of paper comes from a specific brand of notebook. Field Notes, limited edition. Autumn series. He paused. That series was released 3 weeks ago. Mister, Thorne said. The room went dead still. The date on your note is 4 months ago. Thorne said, It is physically impossible for your mother to have written a note 4 months ago on paper that did not exist until this month. Dale's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Furthermore, Thorne continued, relentless. We have sworn testimony from the nursing staff at the rehabilitation center. They confirmed that on the day you claim this note was written, Mrs. Butler was unable to hold a pen due to temporary paralysis in her right hand following her medication adjustment. Thorne leaned forward. Mr. Butler, if you submit that piece of paper today, I will have you charged with attempted fraud and forgery. This is a felony. Dale looked at the paper. His hand was shaking. He looked at Linda, who was staring at the wall, refusing to meet his eyes. He looked at me. I looked back at him. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just watched him shrink. He snatched the paper off the table. He crumbled it into a ball and shoved it into his pocket. It might be a copy, he stammered. I might have recopied it because the original was messy. I made a mistake. Forget it. Ms. Clark wrote furiously in her notepad. The house remains part of the estate, Thorne said, his voice final. And under the terms of the will, the house is placed into the trust. It will be sold, and the proceeds will go to the Sadie Butler Dignity Trust. He closed the file. To conclude, Thorne said, Mrs. Butler left one final message. She recorded it on the morning of her stroke. She asked that it be played for you. He pressed a button on a small speaker in the center of the table. There was a hiss of static. Then, Grandma's voice filled the room. It was weak, breathless, but unmistakable. Hello? Everyone? I closed my eyes. It felt like she was in the room. I'm recording this because I know what you will say when the will is read. You will say, I was confused. You will say, Sadie manipulated me. You will say I did not understand the value of money. I understood perfectly. I documented everything, the loans, the insults, the lies, because I knew you would try to rewrite history. You have spent 7 years telling a story about Sadie to hide your own failures. You made her the charity case so you wouldn't have to look at your own debts. Her voice wavered, then strengthened. I love you. You are my children. But love is not the same as enabling. I will not finance your cruelty from the grave. The money you lost today was not taken from you. You threw it away. You threw it away every time you laughed at her. You threw it away every time you borrowed money and lied about it. Sadie repaid every cent. She is the only one who owes me nothing. And because of that, I am leaving her the only thing that matters, her freedom from you. There was a long pause on the recording. Then, 4 final words. Do not call Sadie a charity case again. Click. The recording ended. The silence in the room was heavy, like a physical weight. I expected to feel triumphant. I expected to feel a surge of vindication, a rush of joy at seeing Dale's red face and Linda's shock. But I didn't. I felt a wave of nausea. I felt a profound, aching grief. It wasn't a victory. It was a tragedy. It was tragic that Grandma had to do this. It was tragic that she had to spend her final years collecting evidence against her own children just to ensure the truth would be told. It was tragic that she couldn't just trust them to be decent. I looked at them. They weren't monsters. They were just small, greedy, insecure people who had gotten caught. I stood up. My legs felt shaky. Excuse me, I whispered. I walked to the door. Sadie, wait, Mr. Thorne called out. I did not wait. I pushed through the heavy oak doors and out into the hallway. I leaned against the wall, gasping for air. I felt like I was going to be sick. The vindication tasted like ash. The door opened behind me. I turned. It was the whole family. They spilled out into the hallway, their shock turning rapidly into anger. You did this, Linda hissed, pointing a trembling finger at me. You poisoned her. You spent all those nights whispering in her ear, turning her against us. You forged those records, Mike shouted. There is no way I owe that much. You typed those up. They were cornering me, their voices rising, their faces twisted with the ugly realization of their loss. I looked at them. For 7 years, I would have cowered. I would have apologized. I would have tried to explain. But I remembered the ledger. I remembered the letters in the green binder. I remembered the recording. I stood up straight. I did not do this. I said, my voice steady. You did this. You did this every time you cashed a check and didn't pay it back. You did this every time you laughed at me. Grandma didn't write a punishment. She just wrote down what happened. You are a thief, Dale spat. You stole our inheritance. It wasn't yours, I said. It was hers. I turned and walked toward the elevator. You will never see a dime, Dale yelled after me. We will contest this. We will tie you up in court until you are bankrupt. You will always be a charity case. Sadie, always. I pressed the elevator button. The doors opened. I stepped inside and turned to face them one last time. The truth won't change who you are, I said as the doors began to slide shut, but it just changed what you can take from me. The doors closed, sealing them away. I was alone in the quiet hum of the elevator, descending to the ground floor. I was shaking. I was grieving. But for the first time in 7 years, I did not owe anyone a thing. The fallout from the will reading did not explode like a bomb. It spread like a virus. By the time I left the elevator and walked into the parking garage, the narrative was already being spun. Uncle Dale was on the phone in the lobby, his voice echoing off the marble walls, frantically calling extended cousins in Ohio and Florida. He was already planting the seeds of the new story. Mom was incompetent. Sadie manipulated her. The lawyer is crooked. But Grandma had anticipated the spin. The documents from the meeting, the ledger, the transcript of the video recording, the forensic report on the forged note, did not stay in the conference room. Mr. Thorne had, per Grandma's instructions, filed them as part of the public probate record immediately. Within 48 hours, the extended family knew. Cousin Sarah from Colorado, who had not spoken to me in 3 years, called me on Sunday night. Sadie, she said, her voice hushed. Is it true? Did Dale really try to forge a deed? The tone had shifted. For 7 years, when people called me, their voices were pitched with pity or condescension. Poor Sadie. The charity case. Now, the tone was different. It was laced with fear. They were not calling to offer help. They were calling to find out if they were on the list. They were calling to see if Grandma had kept a file on them, too. I did not gloat. I did not gossip. Ask Mr. Thorne, I told Sarah. The records speak for themselves. I hung up. I realized then that I had become the scariest person in the family tree. I was the keeper of the secrets, simply because I was the only one who didn't have any to hide. 3 days later, Mr. Thorne summoned me back to his office. The family was not invited this time. It was just me, Thorne, and the view of the city skyline. There is one more component to the estate. Sadie, Thorne said. He poured me a cup of coffee. You heard about the Dignity Trust during the reading. The fund established with the forfeited bonuses of your uncle and aunt. I nodded. The scholarships for divorced women. Yes, Thorne said. But Grandma did not just leave money to a cause. She left a structure. And she named a trustee. He slid a document across the desk. She named you. Sadie. I stared at the paper. Me? I asked. I do not know anything about running a trust. You do not have to manage the investments. Thorne said, the firm handles that. You have to handle the decisions. You have to approve the applicants. But more importantly, he paused, looking at me over the rim of his glasses. Grandma included a clause for family redemption. My stomach tightened. Redemption? The trust allows for the family members, Dale, Linda, Jessica, to apply for small grants in the event of a documented emergency, Thorne explained. But they cannot just ask the bank. They have to submit a request, and the request must be approved by the trustee. I felt the blood drain from my face. She put me in charge of their money, I whispered. She put you in charge of the gate, Thorne corrected. If Dale has a heart attack and needs help with bills, he has to ask you. If Linda needs a new roof, she has to ask you. I stood up and walked to the window. The city looked gray and vast below me. I do not want this, I said. I knew you would say that, Thorne said. I turned to face him. Do you understand what she has done? I asked, my voice rising. She hasn't set me free. She has tied me to them forever. She has made me their parent. They will hate me. They will harass me. I just want to walk away. I want to never speak to them again. Thorne opened a folder and pulled out a small, handwritten note. She wrote this for you, regarding this specific decision. I took the note. Sadie, I know you want to run. I know you want to cut the cord and drift away. But if you just walk away, they will tell themselves that you were afraid. They will tell themselves that they won, And you fled. To be truly free, you must hold the power and choose not to use it like they did. You must show them what grace looks like. It is the hardest thing I will ever ask you to do, but you are the only one strong enough to hold the keys." I crumpled the note in my hand. I was angry. I was furious at her. Even from the grave. She was teaching me a lesson I did not want to learn. She was forcing me to be the matriarch when all I wanted to be was an orphan. I sat back down. "What do I have to do?" I asked. "You just sign," Thorne said. "And we notify them that all future financial requests go through you." I signed the paper. The ink looked black and heavy, like iron bars. The backlash was physical. 2 days after the notification went out, Aunt Linda appeared at my workplace. I worked in a large, open-plan logistics office. It was not a place for drama. Drivers came in with clipboards. Phones rang with shipping updates. I was reviewing a manifest when I heard the commotion at the front desk. "I just need to speak to my niece. It is a family emergency." I looked up. Linda was standing at the glass partition, wearing sunglasses and a trench coat, looking like a spy from a bad movie. The receptionist looked terrified. I sighed. I put down my pen. "It is okay." "Kelly," I called out. Linda rushed past the desk and marched to my cubicle. She did not look at the other employees. She looked only at me. "We need to talk," she said, "in private." I stayed seated. I did not offer her a chair. "I am working." "Linda, this is about the trust," she hissed. How could you? How could you let her do that? Putting you in charge of our inheritance? It is perverse, Sadie. It is sick. It is not your inheritance," I said calmly, keeping my voice at a conversational volume. "It is a charitable fund. It is my money," she shrieked. Heads turned. A forklift driver stopped his machine to watch. "Linda," I said, "you are making a scene." Suddenly, her face crumbled. The anger dissolved into a mask of tearful fragility, the same face she used when she wanted to return a dress she had already worn. "Sadie, please," she sobbed, reaching for my hand. I pulled it back. I am so stressed. You know how hard it has been. Losing Mom. And now this. I didn't mean those things I said at the reading. I was in shock. We are family. You can fix this. You can sign the release and give us our shares." I watched her cry. 7 years ago, those tears would have broken me. I would have done anything to make her stop. I would have apologized for existing just to make her comfortable. But now, I saw the mechanics of it. I saw the gear shifting in her eyes. She was not sad. She was negotiating. "I am sorry you are stressed." I said, "Can we go somewhere private?" She pleaded. "Just 5 minutes. In your car?" I looked around the office. I saw my boss watching from his office. I saw my coworkers listening. "No," I said. "What? No," I repeated. "I am not going anywhere private with you. Linda, if you have something to say, you can say it here." She stared at me. The tears stopped instantly, as if she had turned off a faucet. "You are enjoying this," she said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You like seeing me beg. I am not enjoying it." I said, "I find it incredibly sad, but I'm also busy. Goodbye, Linda." I turned back to my computer screen. I started typing an email about a shipment of copper piping. For a moment, I thought she might hit me. I could feel her heat radiating behind me. Then, I heard her turn on her heel. "You will regret this," she muttered. She walked out. I kept typing. My hands were shaking so hard I had to backspace 3 times. But I did not look up. The next week, a package arrived from Mr. Thorne's office. It was a heavy square box wrapped in brown paper. The note attached read, "Mrs. Butler asked that this be delivered to you 1 week after the reading. She wanted the dust to settle first." I took the box to my apartment. I sat on the floor of my living room, the apartment I would soon be leaving. Thanks to the sale of Grandma's house, and opened it. It was a photo album, old leather, smelling of cedar and thyme. I opened the cover. It was not a normal album. It was an annotated history of the family. Grandma had gone through decades of photos. Polaroids from the 80s, glossy prints from the 90s, digital printouts from the 2000s, and she had written underneath them in her sharp, black ink. There was a photo of Uncle Dale at his college graduation, smiling with his arm around Grandpa. Caption: Dale graduated with a C average. He told everyone he was on the dean's list. We paid off his gambling debts the week before this was taken. He never said thank you. There was a photo of Aunt Linda at her first wedding, looking radiant. Caption: She spent 3 times the budget we gave her. She screamed at the caterer until the poor girl cried. I had to tip the staff extra just to apologize for her behavior. I turned the pages, mesmerized. It was a catalog of truth. It stripped away the polish they had applied to their lives. Then, I found the pages about me. There was a photo of me at 7 years old, missing 2 front teeth, holding a muddy frog. Caption: Sadie was never afraid of getting her hands dirty. She loved things that other people found ugly. There was a photo of me at my wedding to Mark, the wedding that eventually fell apart. I looked young and hopeful. Caption: She loved him so much. She gave him everything. When he left, the family said she was too difficult. They were wrong. She was too deep for a shallow man. And then, a photo from last Christmas, the one where I was sitting at the edge of the room, holding the charity starter kit bag, forcing a smile while the family laughed in the background. Grandma must have taken it surreptitiously. The angle was low. Caption: Look at her face. She is breaking. But she is not bending. They think they are shaming her. They are only shaming themselves. This is the moment I knew she was the strongest one of us all. I traced the ink with my finger. Grandma hadn't just left me money. She had left me my dignity. She had given me back my own history, rewriting the captions that the family had tried to force on me. I closed the book and held it to my chest. It felt heavy, like a shield. On a gray Saturday morning, I drove to the cemetery. The grass was still recovering from the disturbance of the burial. The headstone had not been placed yet. There was only a small metal marker with her name and dates: Margaret Rose Butler. I stood there for a long time. The wind whipped my coat around my legs. I was alone. The family had visited en masse the day after the funeral to take photos for social media. But they hadn't been back since. I am angry at you, I said out loud. The wind took the words and scattered them. I am angry that you waited 7 years. I said, I am angry that you let me suffer so you could build a case. I am angry that you made me the trustee so I can never truly get away from them. I kicked at a clod of dirt. You played a long game, Grandma, and you used me as a pawn. I let the anger sit there. It was real. It was valid. I was allowed to be angry at the woman who saved me, because she was also the woman who watched me bleed. But, I whispered, the anger draining out of me. Thank you. I knelt down and touched the cold earth. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the receipts. Thank you for the album. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of rain and wet leaves, but I'm done paying. I said to the ground, I spent 7 years paying for belonging with humiliation. I thought if I took their insults, they would eventually love me. I thought if I was the perfect victim, they would stop. I stood up. I am not paying anymore. The tab is closed. I turned and walked back to my car. I did not look back. The threats began in earnest the following month. Uncle Dale hired a lawyer, a strip mall attorney who sent a blustery letter to Mr. Thorne threatening to contest the will on the grounds of undue influence. He claimed that I had isolated Grandma and coerced her into rewriting the estate plan. It was a terrifying letter. It used words like fraud and manipulation and elder abuse. When I read it, I spiraled. I sat in my kitchen at 2 a.m, staring at the letter. The old voices came back. You are the charity case. You are the problem. You ruin everything. I imagined the court case. I imagined them on the stand, lying about me. I imagined losing everything and ending up back in that basement apartment, with them laughing at me. My heart hammered. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my phone to text Mr. Thorne. Maybe we should settle. Maybe I should just give them the money. Then, I stopped. I looked at the black composition notebook where I had documented their behavior. I looked at the green binder. I looked at the photo album. Grandma had anticipated this. She had built the safeguards. She had the video recordings. She had the independent witnesses. Their leverage was an illusion. They were barking dogs with no teeth. I put the phone down. I did not reply to the letter. I did not call Dale to beg him to stop. I simply stopped participating. I blocked Uncle Dale's number. I blocked Aunt Linda. I blocked Jessica and Mike. I blocked the cousins who had called to fish for gossip. I changed my email settings so their messages went straight to a folder labeled legal. I did not announce it. I did not write a long Facebook post about toxic family and cutting ties. I did not make a speech. I just went silent. It drove them insane. They tried to reach me through friends. They tried to reach me through my work, but I had built a wall of silence. And I stood behind it. Mr. Thorne handled the lawyer. He sent a single response package containing copies of the signed loan acknowledgments, the ones they refused to sign. But the records existed. The video of Grandma's statement, and the forensic report on the forged note. He added a cover letter. If you proceed with this contest, we will countersue for the recovery of the unpaid debts listed in the ledger, plus 7 years of compounded interest, and we will file criminal charges regarding the attempted forgery of the deed. Dale's lawyer dropped the case 3 days later. The final confrontation happened 2 months later. I was at the grocery store, the same one where I used to shop with coupons, counting pennies to make sure I could afford milk. I was in the produce aisle, picking out apples. I felt a presence behind me. Well, if it isn't the heiress. I turned. It was Uncle Dale. He looked older. His face was puffy, his eyes red-rimmed. He was wearing sweatpants, which was unlike him. The defeat hung off him like a bad smell. I did not run. I did not flinch. "Hello, Dale," I said. He sneered. He moved his cart so it blocked my path. "You think you won, don't you?" he said. "You think because you got the money, you are better than us." "I am not better than you," I said. "I just don't owe you anything." He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You will always be a charity case." "Sadie," he said, leaning in, "that is who you are. You are the little girl who needed us to survive. You are the one who cried over a bag of groceries. Money doesn't change that. You will always be the broken one." He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to see me cry in the middle of the produce aisle so he could have one last story to tell. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw a man who had borrowed money from his mother and lied about it. I saw a man who had forged a note to steal a house. I saw a man who bullied his niece to feel powerful. He wasn't scary. He was pathetic. I put the apple in my basket. "No," I said quietly. He blinked. "What?" I said no. I repeated, "I was never the charity case. I was the convenient story. You needed someone to look down on so you didn't have to look at yourself. I was the mirror you broke because you didn't like the reflection." I stepped around his cart. "I am done being convenient. Dale," I walked away. He shouted something after me, an insult, a curse, but I didn't hear the words. They were just noise. They were static on a radio station I no longer listened to. I walked to the checkout. I paid for my groceries with my own debit card. I walked out into the sunlight. I got into my car. I sat there for a moment, watching the people walk by. I was 34 years old. I was alone. I had a difficult job as a trustee ahead of me. I had scars that would probably never fully heal. But as I turned the key in the ignition, I realized something. The car was quiet. My phone was silent. The air was clear. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't a parade. It was just life. And for the first time, it was mine. Thank you so much for listening to Sadie's story. It is a heavy journey, but one that speaks to the truth of how families can sometimes be the hardest battleground of all. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Please drop your country or city in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of justice, resilience, and the long road to truth, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. And finally, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Grandma's plan was fair? Would you have taken the role of trustee, or would you have walked away completely? Share your perspective in English in the comments. I will see you in the next story.